This is the ICET 22 Conference podcast. This year's theme is Sustainable Educational Development and is being hosted by the Danish Network for Educational Development in the beloved city of Aarhus. And now you are probably wondering, is it even possible to jam any more information into a jingle? And yes, of course it is, because we would really like to tell you that ICET is really the short version of International Consortium of Educational Development, and they are the lovely organization behind all of this. My name is Kasper, and I will be your guide throughout this podcast series. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the ICET Conference podcast. In this episode, we will speak to the president of the ICET organization. So it's both going to be about the presidential speech she will be giving and a little bit about the organization. Welcome, Kasturi.
Thank you, Kasper.
And you are as associate professor at the University of Cape Town in South Africa, and you are also president of the ICET organization, and you're going to give a speech at the conference.
Yes, absolutely. So lots of exciting things rolled up in one there, not least because, the University of Cape Town is in a beautiful location on the African continent. But to be ICET president from this location means so much to me and to so much to people like me, because we now get a chance to travel north, make our voices heard, and bring the South to the north. And I'm really looking forward to doing that as part of the Keynote lineup for the ICET conference.
It sounds really, really good. I can't remember. What is it your view is in Cape Town? I've heard, is it a mountain or is it a waterfall, or am I just making this up?
Cape Town is famous for Table Mountain. So it's a 1,000 meter mountain. The top of it is absolutely flat, hence the table. And then when the clouds come down over it, it looks like a tablecloth has been placed over the mountain. So it's very special. It's also a heritage site and also an important energy center in terms of grid lines, etc. People gravitate to for healing, for therapeutic work, etc. So the mountain, very important. Also that we have the sea so close to the mountain. So that kind of balance of mountain and sea is really such a good way to describe the people of South Africa and Cape Town. Diverse, different, but just sitting together so well in that kind of, link.
Well, Kasturi, I really, really hope that at some point the ICET conference is going to, stay and be in Cape Town, because I would really like to go. It sounds absolutely amazing.
I'm sure we're going to have to make a special move for you, Kasper.
Oh, that sounds great, because we have no mountains in Denmark, and we definitely don't have all that scenic view in the same way. We got a lot of ocean. We got plenty of that, but no hills and mountains.
Okay.
But Kasturi, how the ICET organization, of course, takes up quite a bit of your time, and you really seem to have been engaged in it for quite some time. But how long have you been an active member of ICET?
Yeah, thank you. I've had the privilege of joining ICET as the president of HELTASA, and that is a network in South Africa, which is a higher education learning and teaching network. And I joined so I took over as president in 2016, and then I attended the first council meeting of ICET in Shanghai in 2017. And actually, that was my induction, my real introduction to the organization, what it stands for, what it's trying to do, and especially, in the Far East, as it were, it was very important to see how we're trying to build networks, how we're trying to invite people to come in, discuss, but with a great kind of sensitivity for the cultural differences that we all have. And I think that's a very important part of any educational development endeavor, is not just to focus on, the knowledge and what students are doing in terms of passing and failing, but what kind of social consciousness do they have about the world they live in? And I see ISED as a very important organization to advocate and promote this kind of vision of educational development that looks at the whole person. So that's where I came into it. And then I think 2 years later, I also had the privilege of working with a very good ISED council, and then met Alan Goody, worked with the board a bit, and then I was elected as president-elect in 2020. So I formally came onto the board there and started working behind the scenes, if you like, and really got involved in decision-making, etc. It was a really good training ground for me. And as part of the ISED, scaffolding process, the president-elect shadows the president and then steps into the role. So that's a really important kind of support mechanism that you're not just, thrown into the role with not knowing what to do. And when I took over in, I think it was last year after the AGM, I had to really think about the responsibility, in a sense, of what it means to lead, number one, as a woman and as a Black woman. And what does it mean for the organization? Does it open up conversations? Does it attract different people? Does it attract different networks? And I'm not talking about Kasturi, the person. I'm talking about what I represent. And again, that brings us back to the organization and educational development. Who do we represent? Who do we include? Are we aware of how we show up, of how we stand up, of how we make this world a better place, make the university a better place? So it's not just all the glitz and glamour that goes with being a president of any organization. It's the responsibility and the accountability that one has to also embrace. So I mean, just the first few months now, since November last year, and working with a fantastic team, and we are trying to reshape the vision of ISED with council members, but to pick up the baton from Alan Goody and try and just make it a stronger, wide-reaching, more inclusive organization.
So that seems like a good task, and a task that's worthy bringing forward and debating with one another. So it's good that we have a physical conference where people come from all over the world and can debate the topics of the time, both for the organization and the greater conference theme overall. So Kasturi, I don't know about you, but I'm so much looking forward for a physical international conference. It feels like it's been ages. Like I said in the last episode, I haven't been to anyone since 2019, and I'm looking forward to meeting my international colleagues. How about you? When have you last been to an international conference?
You're so right, Casper. I mean, in the COVID, in the 2 years of the pandemic, I suppose because we couldn't fly anywhere, I was saying, I'm so glad we're not flying anywhere. I'm tired of this flying around the world, etc. But as soon as things opened up, it was like, we really do need to be in the same room. It's very difficult doing the work we do, and by we I mean educational developers, in an online space. It's a lot of labor to try and create the energy, the conditions, because that's what we invest in, we invest in the relationship building. We thrive on the energy in the classroom, etc. So I'm also very excited that we are able to be in Denmark, in Aarhus, in May, June, and to just reconnect and establish those links again. So important for the work as we go back to our own countries, etc. The last time I was in a physical conference internationally was in 2019, and I have to say that was a kind of it was such an important moment for me. I was a keynote speaker at Aristotle, and It was the first time, in a sense, I was addressing, an international audience of that stature and those numbers. And that it was in Atlanta was also so important. The Martin Luther King theme, etc., was so important. So I'm I'm not saying that Denmark is not going to live up to that. I'm sure you will.
It is a very big task to live up to. Yeah.
But that was my last and absolutely most enjoyable conference, and made so many new networks and so many new friends.
But Kasturi, you are very, very lucky that you are coming to Denmark in the summertime, because now it's we had a bit of snow today, and it was just windy and all sorts of that. I have a friend who came to Denmark from South Africa, and the first couple of months he was here, he couldn't understand why all of us Danes, we were chasing the sun. We wanted to get more of it because we are 3 or 5 months, it's very, very cloudy, it's very, very dark. So as soon as it comes out, we sort of chase it. And he said, that's a totally different world from what he was used to. So anyway, when you come, I'm sure it's going to be a very, very lovely sunny week.
I'm sure it will.
Yeah, but it's not all about sunshine. So I would like to hear something about your field of research, and even more importantly, what motivated you to follow that specific line of inquiry?
Thanks. I have sort of my previous training is in language and literature, and then I move into academic literacies. So it was a kind of segue from there into academic development. And that's quite a huge focus in the South on students and supporting students through their learning and creating, just really very good pedagogies in order to do that. But soon after that, I moved into a related field, called academic staff development and professional development. Started working with lecturers around all issues of pedagogy, assessment, curriculum, etc. And I think, then I found my niche, because there was something about holding the space with other academics, walking the journey with them, understanding, etc. Was really close to my heart, because it had been my experience as well, trying to fit into a university, not quite belonging, trying to, make it work. And I sort of facilitated spaces from that place. So my work is closely aligned to who I am and what I'm passionate about. And I really think, that alignment is what gets me up in the morning and gets me to work, because there is a higher purpose. And I don't want to sound too philosophical, but it really is important to me that, who I am and what I do are so closely sort of in sync, not without challenges. But it's really,
we always have those.
Yeah. But I think the work is amplified from that angle, because when there's synergy there, the research doesn't become a separate component. So I research from that place as well. So if I think of myself as born of struggle, then my research and my pedagogies and the way I facilitate are all to mediate struggle, all to help us academics to navigate struggle. And I say struggle because it might be a strange word in other parts of the world, but it's very real here, And I think it's that unique kind of struggle context that has produced excellent scholars and practitioners in Cape Town, in the global South, because we are born of struggle. So nothing is taken for granted, in a sense. And the need to make things explicit, also makes the research more, it translates better. For want of a better word. So academic staff development and pedagogies then led me to the field of curriculum change. And in the 2015 moment in Cape Town, especially at my university, we had the Rhodes Must Fall movement. It was a student protest, and here is where the whole decoloniality was introduced. Not that that had not been, experienced around the world and people had worked, but certainly in our locale, this is where it literally hit the fan. So through that project, we were able to open Pandora's box and start thinking about how we engage with knowledge. And, engaging with knowledge from a framework of being and power, really started to question some of the traditions and conventions that we had taken for granted. For example, in curriculum change work, it's so important to think about the disciplines that we've been socialized into. We are now talking about transdisciplinarity and interdisciplinarity, but we do need to do a critical reflection on how our disciplines have disciplined us in terms of research, methodologies, the way we publish, the way we write, with what voice, etc. And sometimes we reproduce those traditions that no longer serve us. So it's a very important moment to be able to step back and say, what meaning does this have? Is this really a response to real life problems and solutions? Or am I just coming up with something, to advance my own career? It has little impact, but, I'm an academic, let me do it anyway. So that's the second field. And the third area that I've become very interested in and have had the opportunities to sort of flex my development in this regard, and that is leadership. And I think about leadership as a challenge and an opportunity, because to do it with integrity is really important in higher education today. So I'm busy writing a piece. So lots of my work and, articles that have been published, one in the International Journal for Academic Development, IJAD, which, as you know, is linked to ICED, very important part of the ICED organization. IJAD is extremely successful in terms of its readership, in terms of its number of publications and wide subscription. This paper had to do with decoloniality of the curriculum, but more importantly, to take a moment to consider how, while we are disrupting our conventions and traditions, i.e. the Knowledge Project or Teaching and Learning Project, in what ways are we disrupted ourselves? And what is that relationship between the out there and the in here? And how do we bring those into balance, into some sort of alignment and some sort of conversation with each other? So I'm busy working on a piece now, which is very interesting for where I find myself right now. I'm sitting in the office in the Center for Higher Education Development, but it is the Dean's office. And on the 1st of April, I was appointed as Dean of the Center for Higher Education Development. So it's a little bit strange, it's a little bit strange. It doesn't quite fit yet. I don't know if the room is too big for me or I'm too big for the room, but yeah, I'm working it out, right? But when I reflect on how it is possible that I am sitting here as the first Black woman Dean of this Center of Educational Development, preceded by many good leaders, right? How do I show up here? And I'm thinking about something called the audacity to be me, and what it means for other people to think about the possibility that they too can sit in offices around the campus and work and find their journeys into those places. These are not ivory towers reserved for a few. If I can do it, anyone can, So I'm really interested in spreading that kind of narrative and message through ICED, through the networks, and through our work globally.
So at least that's giving you a very, very clear motivation and also a clear research goal. And I don't know if you congratulated people with becoming the dean, but I think that's a good thing. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
It sounds very, very good.
Thanks.
So, Kasturi, how do you see the connection between your line of research and the conference theme on sustainable educational development?
Mm-hmm. You know, I see very strong links between not just my work, but lots of other people coming to ICET as keynote speakers. Clara, Katerina, Catherine, you know, people who've all been involved in some way or the other with the sustainability of educational development. It might, you know, seem to be more prominent now after the UN SDG goals, and we picked up on the discourse of sustainability. But actually, for educational development, we have spent a lot of time on the periphery. We haven't quite been centered to the university project. We are the place that people, lecturers in other faculties, send their students to get fixed, to be supported, to learn how to write, to do this, to do that. So when I think about the sustainability of educational development, I'm interested in how we balance the dual role of servicing, you know, offering the service to the university, but also our own autonomy and advocacy, so that we might promote the expertise that we have in terms of teaching and learning and the scholarship of teaching and learning. So, you know, it's not coincidental, and it's not to be underestimated that people in educational development themselves have come from cognate fields that are not in education, but they've learned how to support the teaching project. And not everybody can teach. If we all could, then we'd have fantastic pass rates across the world. But there's a specific kind of, you know, art to teaching and how we do that. So to be sustainable, we have to advance our own project, i.e., to promote our role and our value as a scholarship field, a scholarly field, and a field of practice that is worthy of the kind of support it needs to get from the university management and elsewhere, that we are making an important contribution to the transformation of society and through students, academics, research, etc. And we understand our role as supporting and service-oriented as well. So I want to look at sustainable educational development from that kind of nexus and how we're balancing that. But I'm also very interested in the sustainability of being. Right? So, what does it mean to be a practitioner? What does it mean to be an educational development researcher, facilitator, etc.? So, what is cost to self? What is cost to other? How do we contribute to society? How do we contribute to the world? And from a Global South point of view, sustainability is really very important to us. It's highly debated in terms of how the UN goals sort of center Africa as the poor cousin, the beneficiary, the child that needs to be helped. But ironically, it is that very continent that has lost a lot of its resources that leaves it in this kind of unsustainable state. So that irony is not lost on us. So we come into the sustainability discourse from a very strong kind of African-centeredness, that there's indigenous knowledge, in different communities that know a lot about plants and water, and they have rich knowledges that have just been sidelined. How do we sustain that? How do we make sure that those don't die, that we have the wisdom for generations to come? I think educational development, I said, all the people attending, etc., have to think outside the box, in a sense, and look more globally and holistically to what's happening to the planet, but through the self. I think the self, in a non-egotistical way, is key to being the catalyst for the kinds of changes that may be sustainable.
So at least that seems, well, it is. I'm really looking forward for your presidential speech, because I can just hear how motivated you are to engaging in these subjects and how important they are. So at least from my perspective, I'm looking forward to it, Kasturi.
Thank you, Casper.
And I hope so are the listeners to this podcast. So we are just about to finish here. And I would just like to end on a different note. So, Kasturi, what are you looking most forward to for the conference and your trip to Denmark in general?
Well, firstly, high on my list is meeting you, because we've had these meetings thus far. Yeah, of course. I want to see if you really are you an avatar or real in person. Then I think just dipping into a kind of culture that is totally different to what I've experienced. We were in Iceland 2 years ago, and that was really interesting to just look at all whether it's geographical, food, music, accents. It's just such a treat. And I want to be able to do that with a kind of openness and generosity to really just appreciate and have fun and dance till the sun comes up and chase the sun around Denmark, and really looking to have a good time. Yeah.
I think we can manage some of that at least. Yeah. I reckon that would be high on the list. So, Kasturi, thank you so much for participating in this podcast and sharing your thoughts and your ideas. Like I said, I'll be looking forward to hearing your presidential speech. So thank you so much, and see you in Aarhus.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I've enjoyed it so much for just engaging me in such an interesting way, Casper. Thank you.
You're very welcome. You have been listening to the ISET Conference podcast. It's brought to you by the Danish Network for Educational Development. My name is Casper, and I will see you in the next episode, where we will talk to another keynote speaker. Thank you for listening.